April 9th, 2021. Yeah, 2021. Hello, hello. If you're just joining, okay, can't hear you. Maybe this isn't working. I'll just unplug it since it's not working. Hope everybody's having a good Friday. Sometimes technology doesn't work on Instagram, but we're going to start off today. Obviously, we're open up for questions. Open it up for questions. Yeah, it's not the mic that's broken. It's this little adapter that sometimes doesn't work right. But what are you going to do? Oh, well. If you didn't know, we are hosting a great event on June 14 through 18, and registration is open now. That's the Jazz Trombone Boot Camp. The Jazz Trombone Boot Camp featuring some wonderful artists like Vincent Gardner, like Andre Hayward, like Steve Davis, like Michael Davis. What's up, Lana Davis? What's up, Hitman? Thanks for letting me know. Hey, Chuck, how are you? So we are going to be doing that June 14 through 18. It's a virtual event, so if you're anywhere in the country, you can do it. It's starting to fill up, so if you want to reserve your spot, you can go to my store, nickfinzer.store, and find it, and it's in the link. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, you can see it in the description. You can click on that and go right on over. But I just don't want people to miss out if they want to attend. So that'll be June 14 through 18. There's only so many masterclass spots that can be reserved. So if you want to be playing in a masterclass, we would love to have you. And so just wanted to let you know that that's starting to fill up. So don't delay, as they would say. What's up, Will Hawley? How are you? So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. The second thing, Lane H. Davis. See, I can't see. I can't read. I see some questions coming in. Feel free to put them into Instagram. Feel free to put them into the comments on YouTube, comments on Facebook, and we'll get to your question today. And hopefully get as many of them answered as we can. Let's see. So I see one here from Brian, but before we do that, I want to say I want to get your guys' feedback here since you're here live. I'm planning to do a series of masterclasses in April and maybe a little bit in May about like specific topics, like pick one topic and do a deep dive rather than these Q&As where it's kind of all over the place talking about different stuff, but do masterclasses and kind of have a pay what you want, pay what you can kind of situation, ticketed situation. So for like a private, Zoom meeting where we'll, go through it, stuff like that. So I need to know two things. One is, what are the topics that we should talk about? Like, what are the different masterclass topics that you want to see? I did a poll on Instagram before, so I have a list somewhat of some things that people want to hear, but I wanted to ask also here on the stream what you guys are thinking about, because you guys are here every week asking questions. So what could we dive deeper on? What could we do more about? So topics, number one, and then what is a good time? You could also suggest that. A good time in the week, a good time during the day, because we got people from all over, so it's a little hard to do it. So I think we'll do them at different times just to accommodate for different people during the week, during the weekend, in the day, in the evening. So hello. I see some people joining. I'm giving people these time to do it. So one more time, you can go down in the description if you want to sign up for the boot camp. It's June 14 through 18. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I can see some questions coming in. So I'm going to start getting to those questions. So hope everyone's having a wonderful week. And let's see. So let's go to the first question here from Brian. What excerpts would you include in your jazz trombone excerpt book? Well, you'll have to wait for the book for that. Like, if I tell you all the excerpts and you learn them, you don't got to buy the book. One that I think is a good excerpt is Sonnet for Hank Sank by Duke Ellington. That's one. A lot of people are like the soli on 3 and 1. So Thad Jones is another. And like a Little Minor Booze, that who did that one? I know the Kenton Band arranged it, but that one's got like a trombone thing at the beginning that's kind of hard. So there's 3 for you. So All right, switching. We're going to get the question from Instagram now. It's from Seth Yeager. He says, any suggestions for jazz solo rep for something like a jury or recital? You should pick tunes that you sound good on and that you like, and that also show a wide breadth of not interest, but a wide breadth of expertise that you've learned during either that year or during your whole degree, if it's a degree recital. I would suggest making sure to have a good balance of stuff that you're good at and stuff that you can showcase what you're working on. So some things might include, like I always try to get, cause gotta have something fast, a ballad, something lyrical, something original. I mean, for a recital anyway. For a jury, you kind of have to talk to your teacher though, because I don't know exactly what you're working on, and I wouldn't know what you need to showcase. I kind of group tunes into different categories, like modal tunes or bebop tunes, blues, rhythm changes. Those are their own categories. Tunes in different keys. I think that a jury or a recital, both of them, the purpose of them is to not only play music that you like and music that you want to play, but it's also for your teacher and you to show everyone all the things you've been working on over the last couple of years or semesters or weeks. So those are some things to take into consideration. And I think it's really important to be playing music that you like also, because you never know when you're going to get a chance to play those tunes that you like again. So it's got to be a balance though. I wouldn't go and do something totally totally off radar, because it's like, it does serve a purpose, like a recital. A recital definitely serves a purpose. Okay, so there you go. So I see a question here from Brian. I see some good questions on Instagram. I don't want to lose them. So Brian, I'll get back to your question. Thanks. As Willie Maiden wrote a little minor booze. I'm going to go back before I lose these questions on Instagram. Kevin asks, how do you work on your time feel? Sometimes when I turn on the metronome, it feels more like of a crutch than a tool. Yeah, that's exactly what happens sometimes when people turn it on. So if you turn it on and put it on 1, instead of putting it on 1, 2, 3, 4, or 2 and 4, that is going to force you to do it, keep the time yourself. But to me, playing metronomically and playing with a strong time feel aren't the same thing. Playing in time is not the same as playing the time. So that's how I kind of make the difference between the two. Playing in time or playing the time. So when I say make sure you're playing the time, that means that you're the one that's dictating the time. You're the one that's creating the feel. You're the one that's actually making it happen and is being communicated. Often just playing on top of the time accurately doesn't have a feel to it. But somebody like that really, like, their time just draws you in. Like Michael Deese is a person who has such strong time feel that it like draws you in. That's something that I aspire to get better at. But there's two ways to do that. One is to do what you're talking about, practicing with a metronome, but putting it on further, like longer and longer increments. So you do it like in 1 bar. So put it on 1. So you go bing, 2, 3, 4, bing, 2, 3, 4. Then you put it half of that. So then you put every 2 bars. So bing, 2, 3, 4, boom, 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 bing. So maybe if your metronome only goes down to 60, then you can only do it at whatever tempo that is. But 60, that's 240, I suppose. But if you go and, I think it was Dan Tepfer made a metronome app where you can put it every other bar and stuff like that. So I think there are various metronome apps that allow you to do this. I am not that sophisticated. I just have a regular old metronome. So, but that's definitely a tool to use. So there's that. And then you got to play along with records and play with intensity. Get that time feel happening from inside. It's got to come from here. It's got to, like, you got to feel it. It's not going to just happen. You have to actually play the time with intention to get that. So those are two ways that I would suggest. Okay, Lane says, I have an extraordinarily talented 13-year-old student in Chicago. She shows tremendous giftedness academically. What inspired you to latch on to beauty and musicality when you were young? It looks like the rest of your question got cut off, Lane. It says this does, but then I don't see anything after that. What inspired you to latch on to beauty and musicality when you were young? Man, it was trombone choir. I know that sounds like probably pretty nerdy, but just listening to that and like orchestral brass excerpts and just the sound. Just the sound is like amazing. You know what really really cemented that for me was when I was a freshman at the Eastman School of Music. We went to DC to play at the ATW, Eastern Trombone Workshop, then American Trombone Workshop now, and we also did a concert at the National Cathedral, which was super awesome. And we played Bach's. What Bach piece did we play? It was a Passacaglia fugue. I forget which one it was, but it was arranged for trombone choir and organ. And let me tell you about a powerhouse of a sound. That was incredibly powerful sound, and just in terms of sheer resonance. Like imagine, 20 trombone players plus a huge pipe organ. That was like a highlight musical experience for me of just like amazing sound. Trombone is the best. So that's one. But even before that, let's see, what did inspire me to latch on to beauty and musicality? I don't know. I mean, I was first drawn into jazz trombone from someone like Wycliffe Gordon, and no matter what he played, there was always an element of vocal stuff to it, vocalization. There was always an element of beauty, even in the dirty plunger, blues. So I don't know. There's always been, I didn't come at it from like a language bebop perspective first. It was like that vocalizing thing first, and then all of the technical stuff came later for me. So I don't know. I'm not sure how that answers your question or not, Lane, but I hope you can encourage your student to continue to play music and love playing music. Oh, I see. The music doesn't come as naturally. Aiden Drake. Yes, I was there in 2019 too. Let's see. Hey, Brian. Hey, hi, Garima. Hi, Trombone Trev. Well, a lot of people commenting. I'm losing. Wonderful. Okay. Yeah, Chuck, that was super cool. All right, so I see some questions. Aiden. I'm not going to be able to see it all. Is there any improv games or other ways to improve phrasing? I've been transcribing a ton, but it's not helping me break. I can't see the rest of your question, Aiden, so maybe you want to put it in the comments, the rest of the question there. But any improv games or other ways to improve phrasing? So you need two things. One is to start recording yourself and listening back and evaluating where your phrasing is good, where your phrasing is bad. Then you need to, I don't know about an improv game necessarily, but I would say that you need to transcribe players that have good phrasing. Someone who comes to mind when I think of trying to break people out of their normal phrasing on trombone would be Bob Brookmeyer. He plays different kind of phrases. He plays longer phrases than a lot of people. And you can kind of trace a lineage with him and kind of go a long ways back into the history. Okay. Yeah. So this will do that, Aiden. So if you go back further, with Bob playing with Clark Terry versus the Village Vanguard versus his later stuff, you can kind of see a progression, but you can kind of pick wherever you want. I recommend the stuff that he did with Jerry Mulligan, because Jerry Mulligan is another one that has kind of an interesting way of phrasing. You got to transcribe these kind of people that are playing with off phrasing, meaning like it's not exactly the same as Bird, right? It's developing your phrasing into a longer sequence. And the thing that was amazing to me is that, a lot of that comes with experience and age. And I wish I could put a shortcut, there's just experience in a certain way that has to come. Because Bob Brookmeyer came to Eastman when I was a student there. And I'll just say the most interesting part of that, there was a lot of great things that happened, but we were in combo and he came in and heard us play. He's like, oh, that was fine. He was kind of curmudgeonly towards the end of his life, but oh, that was fine, but you guys have terrible phrasing. And so he got up and came over and said, all right, when I touch you on the shoulder, stop playing. So when we played more and he just did that, it completely changed how everybody sounded. Just from that little bit of like compositional expertise, his view of what you played, like, and just like stop. That's the hardest thing, is just knowing when to stop and knowing when to the phrase can be ended or when it needs to keep going. So that was super, super, super interesting as an observer, and why I send people to Bob Brookmeyer to get different phrasing. There's other things you can do, like try starting on a different part of the measures, try starting on a different part of the beat to start your improvisation or whatever. But I find it just transcribing people that play that way, and just being open, listening to people that play long phrases. It's gonna try to help you get there. Hope that helps, Aiden. Because it's not just transcribing; it's transcribing and absorbing the phrasing. You have to be able to recreate it on your own. That's the only way. All right, I see a bunch of questions from YouTube. I'm going to get those happening. Ross Law, there are many of us older folks playing trombone. We want to learn more and improve, so not college folks. Are there things you find teaching us oldies that you need to spend more or less time on? That's a good question. Let me think. I think that the volume of practice is usually probably higher with the college students than coming back to trombone after some years of not playing. I think that what ends up happening is there's a resistance to wanting to like learn new things sometimes, and you want to just stick with the stuff you know. But if you don't push yourself beyond those things, or like sometimes people put like a cap, like, oh well, I'm only doing this as a hobby. They put an artificial ceiling on what they can do. And so just getting out of that like mental trap, to me, is a big part of the game of working with someone who, quote unquote, is a hobbyist or non-professional, non-college student. There's the mental aspect of getting them to like, no, you got to play the trombone, and you got to work on all different types of music. You got to push yourself. You've got to do the transcribing. A lot of them say, oh, I have bad ears. I don't want to do it the hard way. Which is learning by ear. I mean, there's not that much difference between the college student and an older student, other than maybe the time they have. Oops, there we go. Speaking of transcriptions, Aiden followed up about transcriptions with a question about writing it out or playing it by ear. You should play it by ear. Yeah, that's the hard way, like I just mentioned. Play it by ear, and then when you're done with it, when you want to be able to show it to somebody else, then you can very easily write it down. Because sometimes we get trapped in the trying to figure out the rhythms, trying to figure out whatever like technical detail of the transcription without being able to just play. And so you just play, man. Just play it. So Ross, I hope that helps. If you can just, whoever you're studying with, whatever you're working on, just like don't put a ceiling on yourself and kind of really work out those technical details, and be open to working hard on very small details. That's what gets you furthest the fastest, is that small detail work that seems tedious, and then going from there. Nice. Anthony watched the 1 and 2 o'clock lab bands. Yeah, all week this week, our lab bands at UNT were playing live streams, which was super fun. It's getting towards the end of the semester. And yeah, a lot of students, we featured student compositions, which is something that's very important to me. So having students write compositions for the band. Okay, Alton. Been checking out Woody Shaw and Steve Trey. Oh, You and the Night in Music. Yeah, that's a good one. What was the one? I think Keith Jarrett has one. What was the one that I learned it from? When I was learning this tune, there was a bunch of recordings that I was checking out. Let's see. If I go onto Spotify and look for just a second. You and the Night and the Music. What was the ones that I was listening to? Let me see. Yeah, this You and the Night and the Music, Keith Jarrett, Paul Motion, Gary Peacock. That was one that I was definitely listening to when I learned that tune. Sinatra, of course, just to get the lyrics, sense of the tune. Let's see what else. I don't know. Nothing else is popping up real quick here. But yeah, the Steve Turay one with, the Woody Shaw one with Steve Turay is a good one too. I think those are the ones that I remember listening to. So you already got it, man. You already got it. All right. Yeah, from Brian, here's a question. Feel free to drop in your questions here. Oh, there's a question that says, I love you. That's very kind. Have you ever had to perform completely cold with no earlier playing at all in the day? Yes, many times. Many times. And I've talked about this a little bit before, but about how you have to have, like, you just have to, that's Jack Courtwright, Anthony. He played Hello Young Lovers. Yeah, okay. Yeah, for some reason it is hard to find recordings of that tune. I don't know why. I see a John Fetchock Big Band one. I haven't checked that one out too much, but yeah, I don't know why there isn't that many recordings of You and the Night and the Music. It's a good one though. Oh, Trenton Barnes is here. Trenton was part of that 1 o'clock lab band performance last night. And what was I talking about? Oh yeah, having to perform completely cold. Yeah, it happens often. You have to at some point you just decide that, like, you're just going to play, and you'll warm up in the first couple of bars of playing. I think that it's important to have like a quick warm up, like a 2-minute warm up. There's a video on YouTube I put up, like a 2-minute warm up or whatever, to just be able to go, and I saw Wycliffe Gordon do this many times. He would come straight from the airport to some gig I was there to see him at. He used to come to Rochester a fair amount when I was growing up, and he would just come straight from the airport and straight on stage play. And I was like, man, that's incredible. How's he do that? And then I realized, oh, you kind of just have to put together like a mental checklist of, like, how do I play, and just go, and that you'll warm up along the way. Do I recommend doing it every day? Of course not, but sometimes you just got to play cold. And if you're playing at a jam session, you're going to play cold. If somebody calls you to sit in, you're going to be cold. I remember that happened once. I went to Smoke to see Mike D's playing. I think was it Mike's band? Yeah, it was definitely Mike's band. And I didn't have my horn, of course. And he was like, oh no, just play my horn. I mean, that might not happen so much now anymore with all of our health concerns, but he was just like, oh man, just play my horn. You can sit in. And so I remember just picking up Mike's horn and playing. And you just have to turn it on, man. And so it's an important skill as a professional musician to develop. Oh, there's Jack here. See, Jack's here too. Jack's here already, Anthony. But he's on YouTube and you're on Instagram, so you guys can't talk to each other. You don't want to play somebody else's horn? Again, like, to me, it's just like you just pick up a thing and you just do it. Maybe it's not a good idea health-wise, but you just have to, like, decide you're going to play good, Okay. Augustine has a question. Do you like James Morrison? I don't know James Morrison personally, so I mean, I guess I like him. I don't not like him. It's pretty incredible they can play all the instruments. I have a bunch of friends that teach over at his school over in Australia, which is super cool. Matt Jodrell, great trumpet player that I used to play with at Juilliard and in Lucas Pino's band. I know Matt teaches there, and his wife, Ange. So she's a great alto player, alto saxophone player. So I don't know. I guess I like James Morrison. That's a funny question. But let's see. Let's go back here. Yes, Anthony, thank you for saying all these nice things about Jack. Jack, if you want to see a whole bunch of nice comments about you, you can go on Instagram. Let's see. Scrolling back to make sure I didn't miss any questions. Feel free to drop some in. Jack will actually be a TA at our jazz trombone boot camp, which I was talking about at the beginning of the hour here. So if you want to meet Jack, if you want to work with Jack because he's so great, which he is, you could come to Jazz Trombone Boot Camp. All right, so I see one from Trombone Trev here. What is your go-to process for writing? Go-to process for writing for jazz combos. I often find it harder to write for smaller ensembles due to the natural limitations that come with a smaller instrumentation. That's interesting because I find the exact opposite. I would rather write for a small ensemble because I find that there's too many voices in a large ensemble, especially when it comes to the brass having 8 or 5 in the reeds. Like I think writing for like a nonette or something is a lot easier personally, like 5 voices, a couple rhythm section parts personally for me. But for writing for combos, for writing for a small group, it's always for me about the melody and the emotion of the music. So you decide on what's the vibe from the melody, write the melody, and then you kind of figure out the same way I do with a big band chart or something is you can kind of map it out in words. And I steal this from John Clayton. I'm not going to try to take credit when I didn't come up with something. So John Clayton came and did a masterclass at Juilliard, and he talked about writing out the musical events in an arrangement, the musical events that happen, whether it's small group, trombone ensemble, big band. When you can't think of what you're going to do or you're having writer's blocks, like, okay, there's going to be the melody. We know that. There's going to be a solo. What does the solo look like? Who is it? Is there going to be backgrounds? Is this, all of these kind of things you can kind of decide in advance. So when you start writing, you have a guide and you can kind of just follow it down, knock all the items off. It helps, especially when you have a deadline, for me, to have that plan. So, so I think you're just having a good melody, then you harmonize that, for a small group. And then I think it's really important to write us for a small group, like actually for the players. Now, this is something that might be hard when you don't know who's going to play or something like that. But I much prefer to write for players than I do for instruments, because you know what somebody can do. You can imagine what the sound is. Like I know, for example, when I get my band together and it's Lucas Pino playing tenor and me playing, that we have a good rapport of playing together and being able to blend our sounds together. And it sounds good when I play higher than him. But with other tenor players with a different sound, it doesn't sound quite the same. I'm not going to call anybody out or anything, because it's not really about good or bad. It's just facts of like, this sound sounds this way, my sound sounds my way. And when you combine them together, they sound a certain way as well. So same thing with guitar. Like I have a thing I really like unison guitar and trombone. So having that together is those two instruments together, kind of like it has to be a particular guitar sound, and it can be a more like quote unquote modern sound. It could be a more classic sound, but it kind of combines together in a certain kind of way. So hopefully that helps. I wouldn't worry too much about like thick voicings or writing it to sound like a big band. You want to write it to sound like a small group, lots of space for blowing and backgrounds and all that kind of stuff. Don't worry so much about the voicings. Worry about the musical events and the vibe. I think that'll help you. And just don't worry about the voicings. Okay, from Peter. Hey, Peter. Hope you're doing well, man. If you had to choose a few trombonists who have greatly influenced your sound, who would they be and why? What is it about their sound that speaks to you? Yeah, that's a good question. So I usually, when I do this exercise with my students, I always say it's Wycliffe Gordon, Curtis Fuller, J.J. Johnson, Steve Davis, and then someone in the classical side like Joe Alessi. Or actually, I would actually probably say that in my formative years, it was Christian Lindbergh who I was listening to more than Joe Alessi. So there's 5. And so there's different parts about each of their sounds that I really like. Also, Slide Hampton is there, although his sound is like very different when you listen to 60s Slide versus 2000s Slide. So it really is it's really changed a lot. So I guess from my opinion, like I'm not sure that Slide, like his sound concept is as influential on me, historically speaking, as like his writing, his approach, his intensity, all of those things I kind of take from Slide, his vocabulary. Anyway, so for sound, you're trying, like, I love how Curtis plays a ballad. He's got a warm sound that kind of just like wraps you up. Wycliffe Gordon always plays with so much vibe and soul, and he's got this brilliance to his sound that, like, I mean, he does play loud, but it cuts and it's very resonant, and it's very vocal. So I think I really like how he always plays with vibe. There's other people that do that too, but he was the first person that I like really was listening to a lot So that. JJ, just so clear, so precise. Oh, I got too many now. But JJ's core and clarity, and then who else did I say? Steve Davis, because the sound is so warm. It's coming out of Curtis, but maybe just like a what am I saying now? Kind of coming out of Curtis, but like maybe like somewhere in between JJ and Curtis. And I really like Steve Davis's sound, and it speaks to me for sure. And then Christian Lindbergh has that same kind of like brilliance to his sound, but so much core. And I think when I was younger, I was just impressed by like the theatrics of all of what he would do. But I'm just trying to think in like my formative years, like those were the sounds. Like I was listening to Wycliffe Gordon and JJ and Curtis, if I had to pick like even less. And then it kind of from there kind of expanded. But that's what drew me in. I hope that's detailed enough for Peter. Peter is a great trombonist too, and he has a nice sound concept also. So Curtis is great. Love that. Oh, Jackson's here. All my students are here. Hi guys. Oh, Joey Lopez is here. Students joining in. They're coming in to what do you call? Zoom bomb? Something. Let's see. Jackson, who was also on that 1:00 concert last night, Jackson Churchill, played a great solo too on what was that song? Paper Moon. It's Only a Paper Moon. Anthony, that's very kind. He loves all jazz trombone players. Okay, advice for things to include, think about when starting a website. Sure. So websites. Really important to have a website, number one. So I'll start there because if nothing else, it's because you own that small little corner of the internet. You can control what's there, when things are posted. Nobody can tell you what to post there or when to post there. And you control the distribution. You can send as much traffic there as you want. You own it, right? So as long as we're on the same page there, that's number one. Because some people don't think they need a website. And Demi Demetrius is here. Bass trombonist will be starting in the fall. Hi, Demetrius. So one, deciding you need to have a website. Two is don't worry too much if Jackson Churchill is not available. It's not really a big deal. Jackson Churchill trombone, Jackson Churchill music, whatever you want to do. It's not going to be a big deal. The people are very used to, oh, come on. Sorry, my Instagram there we go. We're back. Don't worry too much about that. But so designing a website, the important thing to think about is that you want to optimize every page for the user, the visitor, to take one action. They're not going to look around your whole site. Most of them that are coming to your site are trying to get something. They're trying to either get information about you. They're trying to see who you are, listen to your music. They have a purpose, like why they're there. They clicked through maybe from Facebook or from an email, and you want to send them somewhere where you can get one specific action done. So having different pages with one action on them can be a really good way to go. Most people aren't going to just browse around. It's like the average website visiting is like 10 seconds or something like that. So it might be even less than 10 seconds. So you're trying to grab their attention and you're trying to, stay in touch with them. So one really important thing that I think is important to have there is collect their email address, because you want to be able to stay in touch. Even if they don't necessarily want to hear everything you have to offer into the future, it's important to get their email so you can tell them when you have new music coming out and stuff like that. So setting up a way to collect email addresses in exchange for something of value. So I try to separate it out into my different parts of my audience. So saying like students, trombone students, what's up, Alexa Tarantino, students, like other colleagues or other trombone professionals, and then music lovers. So we all have different things that we might want. So I have lots of PDFs that I give away or like music that I give away, and I try to direct those different people to different places on my site so that I can give them something for taking the time to check out the site. So those are things I think about. Setting it up, and the last thing I'll say is setting it up in a way that one expresses your brand and really shows your personality, shows, a professionalism through color choice, through font choice. Simple is better. So that, and then the last thing was, now I lost my train of thought, reading other people's questions. professional, and keeping it simple, and making it easy to update. Yeah, because number one thing about a website is you have to keep it updated. If it's not updated, people will go to it and they'll say this person doesn't update their website, and they're going to be done with you. So, okay, we got a recommendation for new music. I'll give you a recommendation. A great record that came out today on Outside In Music from a great friend and pianist, Stephen Feifke. He's got a big band record that just came out. And it's got a lot of great trombone on it. If you are a trombone fan, Robert Edwards is on there, Jeffrey Miller, Armando Vergara, Jennifer Wharton is on there. So a lot of great trombone players. Benny Benack, Ulysses Owens. There's a lot of great people on that record. So Kinetic is the name of it. You can check that out. Ulysses Owens also has a big band record coming out with us, and there's 2 singles out from that. So check those out. There's some great young players on there. Those are my music recommendations for today. Demetrius. All right, Jackson, hopefully that was helpful for you. And Trenton, this is just a UNT trombone takeover today. You guys never even asked me these questions in lessons. This is a good one after this. Okay, Trenton says, tips for renaming a group you lead when you don't necessarily want to have your name in the group title. This is something I'm notoriously bad at, Trenton, so I don't know if you should take my advice on this one. I've had band names that were non-desirable, that's for sure. I know you don't like the name of your band, but I actually I find it to be clever. And I thought that from a marketing standpoint, it's kind of an interesting juxtaposition of like the Louisiana kind of thing and the fun kind of thing and the double meaning of the words. I don't know. I kind of liked your band name. But yeah, I would make it clear what it is. Like if you want to call it a brass band, or if you want to go and say like, name it after the naming conventions that are popular to the genre, like a brass band, they usually call it a brass band or something like that, or like take something it doesn't have a lot of meaning to it, and you kind of put the meaning to it. You could search for like URLs and see if there's like anyone else that's using the band name. Try to search on Spotify, make sure nobody else is using the band name, different stuff like that, just to be kind of interesting. But I would recommend thinking about how other people perceive it more than yourself, because I never thought it was that bad of a name, to be honest with you. I know you don't like it, but it doesn't really matter like what you think, it matters what your customers think, right? It matters what the public thinks. But I try to be creative, try to think about the naming conventions. I know it's like Trenton's group is kind of like an early jazz group or a traditional jazz group, but kind of like a fun party kind of thing. And, there's a band I used to play with called the Hot Sardines that did that. So it was like using like hot like it was then, and that there was let's see, what other bands can I think of that had some people just went by like a fake name, like a nickname, like a fake nickname, a stage name rather, not a fake name, a stage name. And they would just go like by stage name and his band, or like just look at the naming conventions, like Hot Fives, Hot Sevens, all that stuff is what I would suggest. So you don't have to like reinvent the wheel, There you go. Buy you a drink too, Electric Boogaloo. There you go, man. Okay. Sorry that I'm not more helpful there. What's up, A.L. Vilner? I see some questions on Instagram. Let me scroll back here for a second. Okay. What trombonist influenced you the most? Ooh, that's a very tough question. If I had to say, quote unquote, the most, Wycliffe Gordon, I suppose. It's going good, man. Miss playing with you. Talking to A.L. here. I saw you had a new record out. Got to check that out. A.L. Vilner's a great saxophonist and a great big band composer. And he has been playing, not every week, but I'm sure it's going to be coming back again. His band's been playing at Washington Square Park in New York outside. A lot of great young musicians in that band as well. If you want to check out another big band. Brandon Lee, I know, has been playing in that band. I've played. Deez has played. I mean, none of those people are playing right now, but let's see. I was talking about what trombonist influenced me most. It would have to be one of those first ones I named. It was either JJ or Wycliffe Gordon. I mean, Wycliffe Gordon was a person in my life. I never got to meet JJ. So I would say, I guess it would have to be him, because like his writing influenced me, just like his presence, his stage presence, his playing, obviously, tunes, records, all that stuff is something that influenced me in real time. Going to his house showed me that I knew nothing, gave me a lot of advice on what to practice, and like needing to learn how to play the piano, and just a lot of things. So I guess that would have to be it. But, Steve Turre was also similarly extremely, extremely influential, and he really shapes my educational philosophy, maybe not in the way that it's presented, but in a lot of the way that he is super detailed about everything, and he's super, super detailed about like the approach, every little part of the playing, being prepared, honoring the history of the music, like all of that stuff is super important to him. And I really picked up from just playing and interacting with him and working with him over time. So those people are really influential. Steve Davis is really influential. I don't know. It's really hard. I don't have just one. I'm sorry. I failed the test here. I'm BSing the answer because I don't think I can pick. But those are ones, and how they definitely have influenced me a lot, for sure. Okay. Trombone is the most slidey of all the instruments. What is your philosophy and approach to using this unique mechanism? All right. Well, my approach is that I want to use it when I want to use it, and I want to not sound like a slide when I don't want to sound like a slide. I approach it in both ways. Like, use the slide, play it up, play with grease, play with glissando, glissandi, if you want to be official, but know your role. I tend to go towards a clean kind of approach, because I think that trombone can be misunderstood sometimes, and people want to just say it's loud and obnoxious and this and that, and it's a tailgatey instrument, and it's like, yeah, it is, and it's great for that reason. But at the same time, it's important to present the trombone how you want it to be presented. There's a lot of guys doing a lot of different ways of playing the trombone, just like every other instrument. But my philosophy is to learn as much about the history as you can, learn to play extremely clean, learn to play like as many players as you love. To me, that's like at least one modern player, JJ, Curtis, and a couple of guys that are in that pre-bebop era, maybe Benny Green, maybe Lawrence Brown, maybe Jack Teagarden, maybe Dickie Wells. If you can, do all of those things. But, I like to say I go to the middle, JJ and Curtis, slide, and then I work in both ways, outward from the middle. So go backwards, learn some older stuff, go forwards, learn some modern stuff. So a lot of my students are checking out Marshall Jilks, Elliot Mason, Steve Davis, obviously, Michael Deese, all of those guys for sure, Ryan Keberly, James Burton, Chris Crenshaw, Vincent Gardner, all the guys in the Lincoln Center Band, and like people like Andre Hayward and Wycliffe Gordon, of course, formerly of the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra, and Ron Westray, of course. And then kind of going backwards, certain people are more apt to want to check out Tricky Sam, or some people want to check out Lawrence Brown. I love Lawrence Brown, so I send people to Lawrence Brown and Benny Green. But there's those cats, and then there's, like, of course, all the other historical players. I can't just stand here and list them all off, but that's the philosophy for sure. All right, I'm going to go back to IG here. There were some questions. Here we go. Go back. Is it possible, Trombone Trev, is it possible to teach in the collegiate setting without the degree? I'm going to have to say probably not. Like, you probably need to have a degree. A degree, yes. Master's degree, most likely. Doctorate, we're on the fence. I don't have a doctorate. I have a college teaching job. When I've been privy to some searches that we've done in recent years, people do want people to have doctorates, like the university does. I think a lot of the musicians are on the same page that we don't necessarily value a doctorate in the same way as a university president that has no idea what jazz is all about, maybe. But I think there's definitely room for people with a bachelor's plus experience. It's definitely more advantageous if you have a master's plus experience. Like when I say experience, I mean real life experience in like a real scene. And I don't mean to degrade anybody's scene, but like in a big city where there's a lot of people and a lot of musicians, like it kind of puts you in a certain caliber, So I think you got to have at least a master's degree if you're really serious about playing in the college teaching sandbox, I guess. But as more and more people want DMAs, so I can't speak to how many people will allow for masters versus wanting the DMA, but I do know that DMA is preferred by, a college for sure, by the university at large. But, I think there's always going to be the smaller schools. Like Juilliard doesn't have that because they can hire whoever they want, that doesn't have a degree or doesn't have the specific degree that they want. But in other cases, when it's more like a big university, that research stuff is important to them, and they want people that have that experience. And so by doing a PhD or a DMA, you go through that process of research. So they get used to that kind of approach of thinking and interacting and such. All right. From Jack. At what point will the bebop hardbop players no longer be the middle? That's a good point. Do you think during your career, J.J. Curtis will shift to being the older stuff? I think that's probably true already. I guess it's just my view of the middle. And I guess when I say the middle, I don't necessarily mean middle chronologically. I suppose I think of bebop, hardbop as like jazz's regular kind, if that makes sense. That's the regular type. It's like what people think of when they think of jazz. They either think of like old-timey jazz, maybe, if that's their thing, or they think of like that bebop, hardbop, early 60s, late 50s, mid 50s kind of vibe, I think. And so that's kind of what I'm imagining. And yeah, when you talk about 50s and 60s as the middle chronologically, you're definitely right. I think people already do think it's the older stuff, probably. But like there's not that many straight ahead guys from the 70s and the 80s. I mean, there's of course Robin Eubanks and Steve Turre, but and they came through the legacy of Art Blakey, and then Steve Davis a little after that. But that's a good question. I don't know. I also don't know that it matters that much. I feel like I can just change the wording and say maybe it's not the middle, but it's the I think it's the most specific, like playing bebop is like a specific language, and then hard bop is like one flavor of that with less chromaticism potentially. And then you get post bop, which is like more complicated. You get all the Wayne Shorter modal stuff, which I think kind of that's where we're at today, is all the modal mixture, all of that stuff, plus like what you were checking out, like Dave Holland and all that coalescing into this modern jazz kind of thing. But it's also kind of coming out of like the Gil Evans, Bob Brookmeyer, Maria Schneider, like more orchestral kind of thing. Not orchestral, but like more big picture focused, more something like that. I don't know. Anyway, that's a long and kind of circular answer to your direct question. I guess it's not going to be the middle forever. You're definitely right. But in my current teaching philosophy right now, that's how I think about it. Okay, Brian, which artists have you dived into? Is there anyone whose entire discography you've listened to or tried to? Yeah, Duke Ellington, Pat Metheny, JJ, Curtis, the Jazz Messengers, Herbie, Miles, Chick Corea. All the artists that I love that I've done that kind of deep dive with, trying to listen to it all. But I also don't think it's not that important to like memorize the entire discography of a person. We live in an age where you can get that information pretty quick. So just memorizing a whole bunch of information isn't super important. Having a couple records that you love and you know the music on, is pretty important, I think, in terms of just devouring the music and getting it inside of you rather than just be like this thing that you kind of hear and think about. It's like part of you. There's certain records, JJ in person, that one's inside, some of Wycliffe Gordon's early records, Sliding Home, that one for sure. It's just in you, and the Ellington stuff that I played back in the beginning of getting interested in Duke Ellington, that stuff is just like inside of me. I don't know what record it was technically on, because now by the time I was getting into jazz in early 2000s, everything was compilations. So I don't know necessarily the name of the record, but that's the thing, man. So I hope you guys have an amazing weekend. I'm going to jump off. I got another meeting in 5 minutes. So I appreciate everybody being here. I appreciate all the questions. If you want to, in the comments, address my initial ask from the day, which was that I'm going to schedule a few masterclass sessions that are about specific topics rather than these kind of more general question and answer sessions. And sprinkle them in the rest of April and maybe a little bit in May, but probably mostly in April, just to kind of dive deep on a couple of topics regarding trombone, improvisation, or whatever else. So let me know what you think in terms of a time that works good for those sort of things, topics that we want to dive into. Like I said, I got a bunch of good suggestions on Instagram, but I'll see you guys all next Friday. Whatever the date is, 16 next Friday, for another Q&A. And if you want to join in on the virtual studio, we have our virtual studio class next Friday as well, where people play live for each other in our class. So if you sign up for the new Rhythm Changes course, if you sign up for any of my courses or the monthly subscription, you'll get access to that studio class. So that'll be a lot of fun. Okay, so thanks for being here, everyone. I got to jump off, but I will catch you all next week.